The dinner party in their Seattle penthouse seemed perfect. Crystal glasses caught the soft jazz light. But then Ethan noticed something, a touch on his wife's back that lingered too long. Not just a touch, but a comfort. A secret intimacy that wasn't meant for him. Suddenly, the perfect night cracked wide open. In that quiet moment, surrounded by laughter, Ethan realized he wouldn't yell or fight. He'd disappear, vanish silently, leaving behind a letter she defined only when it was too late to turn back. If you're drawn to stories where betrayal haunts long after the secrets surface, this one is just beginning. Seattle's rain didn't wash away his pain, it only made the world shimmer, revealing every crack, every stain. Ethan Caldwell, an architect with a masterpiece home, stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass wall, glass of untouched scotch in hand. His house, a marvel of steel and cedar, felt more like a glass prison tonight. Among 20 guests drinking his wine, Ethan felt exposed, a specimen in a terrarium. Alina, in emerald silk, approached him. She smelled of rain and perfume Chanel No. 5, the scent of her boardrooms and late nights. But tonight, there was a coldness between them, a practiced elegance masking deeper truths. In the sunken living room, Julian Thorpe commanded attention, younger, sharper, the kind of force that drained the air. A venture capitalist with a shark's grin and Alina's biggest client, Ethan knew, deep in his gut. Julian was more than that. He was Alina's lover. Alina moved with magnetic efficiency. But something was wrong. Julian didn't meet her eyes. His gaze flicked over her waist. A brief and possessive touch followed. Alina leaned into it, a lover's reflex, not flinching. In that second, Ethan saw a softness reserved only for Julian, not for him. The laughter, the chatter, the music all faded to a dull hum in Ethan's ears. He saw the woman he'd married 10 years ago, now a trophy wife for the public eye and a secret lover's plaything. He realized screaming would just make him seem paranoid, so he chose silence, a quiet retreat into himself. Softly, Ethan excused himself to the wine cellar, but he didn't go there. Instead, he locked himself in his study. He sat before a pristine copy of The Great Gatsby, a book Alina claimed to cherish but never truly read. He pulled out a black ink pen, ready to write his final, quiet message. The next week, Ethan mastered the art of pretending. Coffee drank, kisses given, smiles forced. Alina rushed out each morning, buried in crisis management calls, but a quiet storm brewed as Ethan withdrew, carefully severing ties, slowly transferring funds, archiving files, and preparing his silent exit without a trace. Ethan's exit was like a complex project, every step deliberate, every detail precise. He didn't empty joint accounts, but used a small inheritance no one cared about. He erased the digital threads of his life, shredded papers, canceled subscriptions. A quiet erasure underway while life around him carried on. Thursday nights were a fragile stage. Alina poured wine, talked about Julian's demands for poetic press releases, trying to mask the tension. Ethan asked about her reading, mentioning the book she faked loving. Her eyes flickered blank. The mask slipped briefly before snapping back. The green light, a symbol she never really embraced. Alina never opened The Great Gatsby. The bookmark remained stubbornly on page 12 for 6 months. Her lies spun easily, pretending to read, pretending to care, just like she faked the life she lived, the nights she spent away, and the affection she withheld from Ethan. The weight of the truth settled heavy. Late at night, Ethan returned to his study. The letter on his desk wasn't bitterness or rage. It was clear, measured an architectural timeline of betrayal told as data, not accusation. He documented every lie and silence, folding the letter into a cream envelope marked simply, Alina. The final act was set. Ethan slipped the letter into the middle of The Great Gatsby, at the chapter where everything falls apart. If Alina truly cared, she defined the letter quickly. But he knew her vanity well. She loved the idea of reading more than the books, loved appearances more than reality, and so he waited in darkness. Tuesday dawned cold and gray. Alina packed for a tech conference, chatting about Julian's demands for meetings. There was no goodbye kiss, no look in the eye, just silent tapping on her phone and a vague promise. Ethan held a coffee he wouldn't drink, watched her leave. The finality settled, heavy and unshakable. Ethan didn't rush. He tidied the house with meticulous calm, arranging pillows and aligning cups, the perfect stage for absence. At night, he placed his scratched platinum wedding band on the bedside table, packed a simple bag, and left without locking the door. The man who gave everything was walking away, unnoticed. Driving to the ferry terminal, Ethan parked and left his keys, wallet, and cards in the car. Then, with quiet resolve, he stepped out, disappearing into the rainy gray city. He blended into the crowd, became just another man. His phone buzzed a call from Alina, but he powered it off and let it fall into the water. He was gone. Friday evening, Alina came home flushed from success. The house was dark. The door unlocked small fractures in her perfect story, the lack of messages, the stillness, it all whispered unease. She called for Ethan. But silence answered. Suddenly, the world she controlled felt cold and alien. Moving through the house, Alina found everything pristine to the point of being lifeless. Pillows, coasters too perfect. There was no warmth, no chaos, just the illusion of a home upstairs, the sight that shattered her facade. Ethan's wedding band gleaming cold beside the lamp, untouched and out in the open. Her panic wasn't about a missing husband, it was about losing control. The ring, the empty closet, the disappeared coat and bag. She realized he hadn't just walked out on her. He'd left her story unfinished. Suddenly, the insulated life she built was cracking under pressure. Then, the doorbell rang unexpected, urgent. Blue and red flashing lights painted the driveway as officers arrived to ask questions. Alina transformed from frightened wife to crisis manager, smoothing her hair and dampening her breath, sitting on the white sofa, confronting the nightmare she never anticipated, her husband missing, his car abandoned, and no clue where he went. The officers explained the car was found 3 hours ago, keys and ID inside. They treated it as a missing person case, needing access to phone records and finances. Alina's mind raced, calls made from her friends, the truth about Julian, everything she hid hanging by a thread. She promised to help, but fear gripped her heart. Once the police left, the mask fell. Alina's anger burned hot as she poured vodka, cursing Ethan, furious at his staged disappearance. She called Julian frantically, cutting him off before he could come. The man who had seemed so powerful now sounded guarded and distant. The game had changed, and no one was in control. Julian's voice was sharp, distant. Did Ethan leave a note? No. Then, the warning if the ring was left. Maybe Ethan knew about the affair, his words cut deep. Alina stared at the empty counter where Ethan made his coffee, the moment playing over and over. The truth was dark and unsettling. Ethan wasn't gone unnoticed. Alina whispered fears she barely admitted out loud. Where was Ethan? Julian snapped, dismissing every hope. Gone, probably lost or worse, the money untouched. The void he left, it wasn't just a disappearance. It was a statement. Alina clung to fragile hope, even as the shadow of loss deepened around her. 2 years passed. The house, once a sanctuary, was now a suffocating silence. Alina stood by the kitchen island, a court paper declaring Ethan's absence crushing her reality. She was remarried to Julian, a brittle union masking grief and regret. The life she built felt like a stage, and the silence was their script. Julian entered, hungover and abrasive, no longer the captivating shark. Their conversations spiraled into exhaustion and blame. The ghost of Ethan hovered always, unsettling the fragile balance. Alina's triumph felt hollow. The man she wanted was just a memory, a shadow that no marriage could dispel. Alina confessed she saw Ethan's shadow, a hunched figure on Pike Place, always just out of reach. Julian snapped, angry and cruel, telling her to stop haunting herself. Ethan was gone. His absence was a wound they couldn't heal. Yet Alina clung to the flicker of hope that was both her curse and her anchor. The marriage had lost its spark. Julian, distracted and cold, was no match for the steady empathy Ethan had shown. Alina felt robbed of passion and comfort. The stolen glances, secret meetings they fueled her once. Now, only emptiness remained, a painful reminder of what she traded for an illusion of stability. She returned to Ethan's house, now filled with Julian's stiff Italian furniture. Yet the bones, the beams, the light still belonged to Ethan. Alina's exhaustion was profound. She had won the man she wanted, but lost herself in the process. The house was a mausoleum of memories, not a home anymore. Every night, Alina relived the moment Julian touched her back. The look Ethan gave, not at the floor, but the reflection. Ethan saw it all, the betrayal, the lies, the performance. The silence he chose to maintain was the loudest scream, and it left Alina stranded in a haunting limbo, caged by her own guilt. Not knowing was a torment she had never imagined. Had Ethan screamed, she could have fought back. Had he walked away with anger, maybe they'd settle scores. But this, his quiet erasure, made her feel invisible, like she was the one fading away inside a life she didn't recognize anymore. 5 years passed, yet Alina felt she'd never exhaled since that fateful dinner. The house was broken down, furniture sold, boxes stacked, dreams downsized. Julian's company faltered. Her clients disappeared. The story that began with betrayal ended in quiet desperation. A family shattered not by noise, but by silence. Julian's shouting broke the tension as Alina packed the last remaining books. The housekeeper gone, dust thick. Alina shoved business manuals and memoirs into bags, eager to erase her past. Even the classics she never truly read felt like props in the funeral of their life together. Startled by Julian's impatient knock, Elena dropped The Great Gatsby. It didn't land flat, it fell open at chapter 7. Her irritation turned to shock when she noticed a cream envelope slipped inside, aged and forgotten. Suddenly, a weight of silence lingered where years of unanswered questions whispered. Her hand hovered over the envelope, the world tilted. Through chaos and years of silence, the letter had waited, forgotten yet present. The precise, architectural handwriting called her name, the weight of 5 years of neglect pressed down. The secret she'd ignored now demanded attention. Julian stormed in, demanding answers. Elena kneeled, clutching the letter like a relic. The past and present collided. She wasn't seeing Julian anymore, but the man whose absence shaped their lives. The letter was from Ethan, an unspoken confession, a test, a farewell waiting to be discovered. The letter tore open, 3 pages of black ink on heavy paper. No rant, no blame, just cold, measured truth. Ethan knew of the affair, saw the lies. But the unforgivable wound was invisibility, the realization he was a man erased from the life he'd built. He wasn't angry, just done. Ethan's note spoke to the woman Elena pretended to be never the one she was. The letter was a test, hidden in a book she claimed to love but never read. If found soon, redemption awaited. If years passed, the truth was that she never looked. He was not dead, just dead to her. Elena's sob broke the silence, raw, horrific, with no victimhood. It was the agony of loss, guilt, and realization that she had architected her own haunting. Julian seized the letter, but only saw mockery where Ethan saw truth. The man who vanished had played the longest game, waiting and watching all along. Julian dismissed the letter as a cruel joke, but Elena knew better. 5 years of pain, 5 years of false mourning, and the secret had been just feet away. Ethan hadn't fled. He had stepped behind a curtain she refused to draw. It was time to stop hiding and face the truth she buried. When buyers arrived for the last walkthrough, Elena shockingly refused to join. No new apartment, no fresh start with Julian. Her legs felt weak, but her mind shattered the chains. She knew where she had to go, toward Ethan, toward truth, ignoring the years lost and the fears ahead. Bar Harbor, Maine, a stark contrast to Seattle's steel and glass. Here, pine and brine filled the air. Elena's journey had taken 3 grueling weeks, legal battles, broken silences, cold truths. She stood outside a small architect's office, seeking the man who vanished but hadn't forgotten her. The reunion was near. The door opened slowly. Elena's heart hammered, gripped tight on the steering wheel. Ethan appeared changed but unmistakable, trading sharp suits for a cable-knit sweater and jeans. The man who left her silence behind. The moment she waited 5 years for was finally here. This is more than a story of infidelity. It is a study of silence, invisibility, and the cost of fading away in plain sight. Ethan's quiet decision to leave wasn't just about Julian. It was about losing himself in a marriage built on performance, not love. The hardest betrayal is being unseen where it matters most. Elena's vanity was her prison, loving the idea of reading, marriage, success without the substance behind it. Ethan's letter challenged that illusion, exposing the hollow shell she had crafted. Sometimes, the biggest lies we tell are the ones we tell ourselves, and the hardest truth to face is our own reflection. Ethan's final act wasn't destruction, it was liberation. By erasing himself, he reclaimed his existence outside the shadows of betrayal and performance. His letter was a beacon for truth, a chance for healing for her, for himself, and for the fragile remains of a love lost to silence and pretense. The hidden letter was more than words, it was a challenge. If Elena found it in time, it meant she could confront the truth and possibly rebuild. But if the letter remained hidden, it said everything. The tragedy wasn't just betrayal. It was the refusal to see what was staring right at her all along. Ethan waited in the shadows, knowing the letter might never be found. His silence was a powerful scream, echoing through years of absence, demanding recognition. The gap between their lives grew, a chasm filled with unspoken pain and missed chances. A reminder that sometimes leaving is the only way to be truly seen. Elena's life unraveled because she controlled the script until it broke. Her panic was about losing her narrative, not her husband. The staged disappearance exposed her fragile grip on reality, forcing her to question everything: the marriage, the lies, and most painfully, her own role in the tragedy she endured. She was masterful at hiding, at managing disasters, but where was the mask when it came to her own life? The crisis she managed so well was crumbling internally. The silence following Ethan's exit was louder than any scream, reflecting raw inner collapse behind expertly controlled calm. Julian, once thrilling and aggressive, became just another man. The fire of forbidden love faded, revealing the cold reality of loss behind every smile and argument. Elena realized that replacing one void with another changed nothing. The shadow of what was lost remained, haunting every moment. Though Julian poured new furniture into the home Ethan built, the subtle geometry, the light angles, the cedar beams still belonged to Ethan. The house itself kept the ghosts alive, a vessel for memory and regret, silently observing the unraveling of a story marked by love, lies, and loss. After years of silence, the letter's discovery shattered illusions. The truth waited quietly amidst dust and shadows. Ethan's words tore through 5 years of grief, rewriting the story from one of abandonment to one of quiet dignity, honesty, and a desperate hope that someone would finally see. Elena stood in the rain, letter burning in her pocket, eyes heavy with tears. The decision lay before her: chase the man she lost or bury the past forever. It was never too late to find the truth, even if it came after 5 long years. The journey, once silent, was now loud with possibility. She traveled across the country, driven by questions and silent apologies, to find Ethan, who had created distance with walls and time. The reunion wasn't just a meeting, it was a confrontation with all that was lost, and all that might still be saved in the fragile echoes of their shared past. Ethan appeared changed but familiar, no sharp suits, no forced smiles, just a man stripped of the life he lost, living quietly away from the stage Elena once ruled. The story they'd written apart was ending, but a chapter of truth and reckoning was just beginning. Betrayal isn't always loud, it can be the silence between words, the absence behind a touch, the spaces left unread in a book. Ethan's story was one of silent heartbreak and deliberate fading. It reminds us that sometimes the deepest cuts are invisible, and the strongest voices are the quietest. Elena's vanity blinded her to the suffering she caused, the books she never read, the love she never shared, all symbols of a life performed rather than lived. Sometimes, the illusions we cling to are cages we build ourselves, locking away the truth of who we really are and who we leave behind. Ethan's final act was a reclaiming of self, a refusal to vanish quietly into betrayal. His letter wasn't just a goodbye, but an invitation to see, to understand, to perhaps forgive. It is a reminder that sometimes to live is to leave, and to be seen is to step into the silence and break it. The letter's test echoed beyond words. Truly seeing someone means looking beyond surfaces, beyond performances. Elena's failure was not just to Ethan, but to herself. We all face moments where we choose to look deeper or look away. The consequences ripple through the fabric of our lives, silent yet profound. Ethan waited not in anger, but in quiet hope, waiting to be truly seen, waiting for Elena to open the book, to break the silence. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought not with noise but with patience, with the calm before an uncertain storm, holding onto the hope that truth will be found. Elena's panic was about control, the story unraveling beyond her hands. The lines between victim and villain blurred as years passed. Her cradle of comfort shattered, leaving her to face the consequences of a life lived behind a mask, where truth was the enemy of survival. For years, they both lived half-lives, Ethan in silence and absence, Elena in performance and denial. The curtain between them was thick and unyielding, but so fragile behind it. Truths waited patiently to emerge and reshape what they lost, challenge who they become, and question if there was still a way back. Invisible pain leaves scars deeper than any wound. Ethan's story reminds us that sometimes, being unseen is the greatest betrayal and the hardest sorrow to bear. When love becomes a performance, what saves us is recognition, acceptance, and the courage to face the quiet truths within ourselves. Elena's journey is a mirror to all who hide behind masks. It asks, what happens when the stories we tell ourselves unravel, when the silence breaks? The answer lies not in blame, but in facing the unspoken, the moments and choices that shape us, and the courage it takes to rewrite what we've lost. In the end, truth is a weight we carry alone until we choose to set it down or pick it up. Ethan's silent departure was his way of setting the scale right, and Elena's discovery, the letter, was the start of hers. It's a story of pain, but also of fragile hope and a chance to rebuild what silence almost destroyed. So what now? If you found the letter, would you face the truth or look away again? Sometimes the hardest stories are the ones we live, and the bravest act is to finally open the book. What's your story? Share your thoughts below, and let us talk about what it really means to be seen.